Oh, from New York, New York, you are listening to Extra Time, presented by AT&T 5G. I am Andrew Wiebe with my partners in soccer, David Goss, Charlie Davies. It is April 28th, 2022. The sun is shining. The vibes are good. It's been a beautiful morning. I'm exhausted. I barely slept last night. Could not sleep when I put my head on my pillow. Just my eyes would not close. My brain would not stop running. CONCACAF Champions League heartbreak. I see you and I raise you to somewhat, perhaps, maybe questionable PKs for the Sounders late on. We got that draw in Mexico City. We're going to Seattle. Sounders, of course, on a plane going there, but we, not you, Charlie, we, David Goss and I, we're going to Seattle for the CONCACAF Champions League final second leg, and there's everything to play for. It is a wonderful, wonderful morning. How you guys feeling? How you doing? Charlie, you feel like you're going to miss out here, or are you going to live through us vicariously? I'll send you texts, man. I'll shoot you some videos, some photos. Watch my Instagram stories. It should be, It's going to be fun.
I know it's going to be fun. I have the FOMO. I know I'm going to miss out. But my parents are coming to visit, and they haven't been here for a long time. It's been 3 years, I want to say.
Wow.
So it's, family comes first.
Yeah, but it's been decades. I mean, MLS has never won CCL. Like you've seen Charlie, your parents before, bro. Like it's.
I'm sorry, Charlie. Are we not family?
What
is this? Not family?
Oh, we're family, but are we blood? Are we blood?
Yes. What is thicker than appreciation for Will Bruin as a community and MLS
blood or partners in soccer, Charlie? They're basically the same thing. Like, you can make fun of it. You can mock our connection all you want. But we've been partners for years now. And look, the law firm of Davies, Goss, and Wiebe.
You keep it strict. You're like partners in soccer.
Oh, in soccer. It's a little more informal with the family side.
Business. Okay, that's fine.
Yeah. Okay. True. Yeah, I understand why you're not going, but Dave, we're going. We got a big show today. Obviously, we'll talk through what's coming, and you know what's coming. CCL recap, Week 9, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But we will be in Seattle. I believe we both get there Sunday. We'll be doing MLS today from Seattle. We'll do Extra Time Monday from Starfire. We'll have a number of Sounders, whether it be Garth or Schmetz or hopefully Nico Lodero and Jordan Morris and Christian Roldan roll through. So look forward to Monday's show.
If you say Ken Griffey Jr. is going to be there, I might have to postpone my parents' flights.
Okay. Or just fly them out to Seattle. That's where you made the mistake, right? You should have, call the audible. Just flip the flight, like maybe it's, maybe you got the ability to do so. Call your airline provider. Beers on us. I say that in complete seriousness on Tuesday night in Seattle. We have permission to break out our credit card and expend some beers back to Major League Soccer because we love you and we appreciate you folks in Seattle. We have a huge, I think it might actually be the biggest group of listeners if you look at our stats in the entire league come from Seattle, which probably isn't surprising. Everybody else around the league is groaning. We're giving Sounders fans too much credit, etc. But we will be somewhere. We don't know exactly where. We're finalizing the spot on Tuesday night. Some of the possibilities here, these are all from producer Anders. He's done this research. He knows the city much better than we do. He is a native son, of course. The Queen Anne Beer Hall. That sounds tight. I don't know anything about it. Sounds cool. Or George and the Dragon. Wow. Also sounds really cool, maybe like a children's book.
Sounds like it's full of Heineken. It's got to be the best place,
oh my God, Heineken flowing from every tap you can possibly imagine. It's like a waterfall, just a waterfall of Heineken. We will have a ticket for you, good for one free drink. You got to come find us. I mean, look, we wish we could do more, but one is more than none. So we'll have a ticket. We'll be walking around, hanging out, talking, whatever, getting ready for the game on Tuesday night. You come up to Dave or I, and, if we trust Anders enough to not be liberal with the tickets, Anders as well, and you say, hey, I listen to Extra Time.
Said the list guy. You think Anders is going to be the one having trouble keeping control?
How many tickets have I given out? Let me run through this real quick. Come up, ask for a ticket. That ticket can be redeemed at the bar. None of this is formalized, by the way, so it might just be that we go to the bar with you and say, hey, buy this person a beer or a drink or whatever it is of your Heineken. It should be awesome. What are you looking forward to, Dave? What's on your mind as we enter this fifth go-round for MLS teams in the final. You have RSL, you have Montreal, you have Toronto, and you have LAFC. You were on the ground in Guadalajara for the heartbreak for Toronto. We're back again. I was on the ground. Were we both there for Montreal? I think it might have just been me in that case. So we've been there before. We haven't seen the promised land. What do you think? Are you nervous? Are you excited? What emotions are running through you right now?
I think once the nerves started yesterday, they've continued. Like, once I found out about the yellow cards, which apparently I explained to everyone previously, and then Dinenno gets in the starting lineup, you're like, this just feels like another one of those. And it sort of rolled on that way until the end, until the 97th minute. But I would say for us, we cover this league pretty extensively, and it's sort of a build-up to MLS Cup. And when you get to MLS Cup, it's special to be around a group that's on the verge of accomplishing something. And there's just a different tone. And Charlie's obviously been there as a player. When a championship's on the line, training is different. The conversations people are having, the way the club's operating outside of the fans, and then obviously the energy the fans have. So we're getting like a second bite at that this year. And so I'm excited, after being in Portland last year for Cup, to sort of be able to jump back in, to go to Seattle, and to just be in a city and around a team that's in that atmosphere. And I was at MLS Cup in Seattle. It was unbelievable. And so to do it under the lights and to do it with the whole world watching,
MF and lights,
I think it's going to be
with a lot of MF and butts in seats. Hopefully Marshawn Lynch among them.
It's going to be special.
It looks like, I think I was seeing tweets last night from Alex Caulfield, who's the communications director for Seattle, and we're very appreciative of him because he's going to hook us up on Monday when we're at Starfire. But he was saying, I think 50K when they got on the plane to go back to Seattle was, and I could be completely wrong about this, was the number of tickets they had sold. I would expect that in the next couple days that would rise. If you're in Seattle and you listen to the show, I mean, God, get your friends out there. Like, this is truly once in a lifetime stuff for any fan base, really. And we hope it becomes a little bit more commonplace, obviously. But to go back to what you were saying about being there, the occasion, there is nothing better in sports, I think, than being there, being especially on the field. I've been fortunate to be on the field for a lot of championship games afterwards, and to feel that sort of like collective joy, relief, camaraderie, that all these people look around and say, my God, we went on this journey together. We did this work together. We prepared. We thought we had a path to get here. We didn't know if it would happen, and it's happened. And just sort of the incredulous list, the like unbridled emotional outpouring that happens in those moments, both on the field with the players, but in the stands with fans as well, is just one of the most special things in life, I think. And I think we can all identify, even if we haven't won a championship in something. And if you have in like a little league, you still sort of understand this idea. Or if you're at your job, if you accomplish something, like the idea of teamwork coming to fruition is just so special. And for MLS fans who have been on this journey for years and years and years, to think that this might happen, even if they have a little bit of jealousy or schadenfreude or whatever it is for the Sounders being perhaps the team to do it, you just got to be a witness. You got to be a witness, and we'll be the witness for you. We are going to be there with a couple cameras on the field afterwards. We're not doing a watch-along show, even though those have been a blast so far in CCL, because we'll be there. So it'll be Dave, myself, Kalen Carr. We'll do a post-game show live on the field with cameras embedded in the celebration. We'll do interviews. Now, look, the celebration, that's an open-ended, noun there.
Someone's celebrating.
Somebody's going to be celebrating. We hope it's the Sounders, but it might be heartbreak again, and if it's heartbreak, you're going to need a place to go and commiserate. You're going to need a place to go raise a glass and say, my God, not again. Who can identify with this? Who knows this feeling? Well, we know the feeling. We coined free space. We've been there before. It feels fitting that we'll be there this time around. So come hang out with us on Tuesday night. Watch the show on Wednesday. Monday's Extra Time from Starfire with the Sounders, and of course breaking down Week 9 as well. It's going to be a blast. All right, let's get into the game itself. Like, we've sort of talked through the logistics, big picture here, gotten ourselves excited. 2-2. You mentioned that start, Dave. I mean, the lineups come out, and Juan Dinenno is there, and he's the leading goal scorer in the tournament with 7, now at 9. And it was just sort of like, wait a minute. What the hell is happening here? Oh, okay, this is CONCACAF, this is CCL. I get it. He's supposed to be injured. They say he's injured. Everybody assumes he's out, but the entire time, I don't know, maybe it's a last-second thing. He did have some struggles in the game. He's fine. He scores 2 goals. A PK that we'll argue about here in a second. Charlie, I'm sure you have opinions on that one. And then just a bullet header that Yaimar misjudges. And Yaimar was the big lineup decision for the Sounders. He hadn't played more than a half hour in a long while. He's into the starting lineup next to Arriaga. Didn't have his best game by any means. But then the Sounders somehow creep back. We spent basically the entire second half from like the 48th minute onward just trying to like will ourselves into some place of positivity. It was difficult. 77th minute, Bofo Salcedo, the guy that we all assumed would score the goal to break our hearts. Handball in the box. Nico Lodeiro puts it away. Smack talks Talavera. It's on. Nico Lodeiro, 90+9. Christian Roldan draws a PK late on, and VAR, video review, part of this entire drama, now in the CONCACAF Champions League. They say, yes, that's a PK. He goes and finishes it 2-2. Charlie, this is a roller coaster. You were not on the watch long, so I don't know how you experienced it. Tell me what it was like for you in your beautiful wood grain studio that you have here, with I'm sure with a fire crackling and a glass of red wine.
The fire was on.
Yeah, how could it not be? I mean,
I would say, the first half, I thought Seattle Sounders felt like they were in control of the game, especially before the first goal. And you were thinking, okay, they're going to dictate the tempo. It's not so much Pumas, who are the home team, thinking they have all this pressure on them. Felt like Pumas were a little bit more defensive than they typically are, a little bit more reserved than we've seen them at home. And I think in large part they're playing the first leg at home, so they can't be as aggressive as they are in the second leg at home, because the score line. Typically they were down and they have to just throw numbers forward, and teams were just waiting to defend, and typically that's not going to work when you're playing against Pumas. Here it felt like they were kind of caught in the middle. They weren't necessarily high pressing that much. They kind of conceded possession, and Seattle were just, it's don't make that mistake. So they give up the first goal in the pen. I am 100% certain that that's a penalty, because if I was in that position and I take that touch, regardless if the defender, Arriaga, gets a touch on it or not, if I can still get to that ball and he collides into me, that should be a penalty. So I have no issue with that call. And when I saw it live, I'm like, yeah, I mean, Arriaga collides into him. Yeah, he gets a little piece of it, but he was second to the ball. He did get a touch, but that's a pen for me. And they got the call. So you play the rest of the game, and the rest of the first half, you try and figure it out. It's almost like, all right, don't become unraveled. Don't just let the game go. We're still in it. Second half comes, they get the second. That's a bullet header. I thought, oh boy, you can control the game, but they're just going to continue to hit you in these type of moments. But what got me so jacked up is Nico Lodeiro on the penalty spot. I've been there. When the keeper's talking trash, it like lights you up, and it can either put too much energy into it because you're thinking about, I'm just going to blast this in and then, basically tell him what's up. Or, there's I'm going to put this in the back of net and I'm going to be calm. I'm going to pick my place, knowing that he's going to be doing all this movement. That's going to take away in the end from him getting to my penalty shot, because he's too much trying to get into my head. So he gets in, Talavera talking all that bull, and Lodeiro comes right to him after. Was like, yeah, what's up? I told you, like, you can't phase me. And then the second go around was even better. So for me, the game's won. The tie is won. I know you got to do it at home, but Seattle, they could have lost this game by 1 goal and they were going to win the tie. For me, that 2-2 is, considering you saw Dinenno on the sideline when they were doing when they awarded the penalty. He was furious because they knew if they got to go to Seattle and just draw after a draw, they're not coming away with the win. They're not coming away with CCL. So let's go Sounders.
Have you not learned anything over the years, Charlie? Is that you don't celebrate early? Like, I do believe, but
no, you're not. You got all this doubt because you're so scarred. You're so scarred from the past.
It's true, man. It's true. It's almost like World Cup qualifying in a sense, but with a longer track record in history and more people that are giving you pain. Like, it's almost like I just can't, until it's literally done, until Jorge Campos is handing over that trophy, or whoever it is. That would be fitting if it was Jorge. He brought out I
think it's Gianni Infantino.
He didn't even show up for this one, though. They said he was going to be there. He didn't show up.
They say that he's going to give away the trophy.
I'm less into grabbing it from him than I am from Jorge. I got to tell you, I'd much rather be taking that from Jorge if I'm the Sounders or Pumas or whoever it is. What's the defining memory of this game for you, Dave? Like, what's the thing that that we'll think back on in the future and talk about? What's the thing that will stick out in people's minds?
Don't say the wrong thing, Gus.
As far as experience.
You know what it is. Don't you say the wrong thing.
Okay, I'm now worried, but I appreciate, Charlie,
it's like,
you putting the pressure on me. But for me, I think the story of this run and the story of the last year for the Sounders, I think, has been Christian Roldan. And so, again, he makes the extra effort to pick that ball up all the way in the corner of the box in the 97th minute. Like, that's him to a T. I can't count the amount of goals he's created or scored just because he's trying harder than the other team and doesn't let a play die. And then he draws the foul and they're able to tie it 2-2. And I think 2-1, as you said, that whole second half, we were willing ourselves to at some point, we're like, 2-1's a fine result. And Doyle's like, yeah, but it's 2-0. It's like we were just trying to create a reality in which that was it. And I think to pull it to 2-2 and then Lodero scores and then, as Charlie said, for the second time, runs at Talavera and sort of says something. I think that'll probably be what you step away with. And part of that is because it was a bad performance individually from the Sounders. I can't name a single player who was clean in their passing, who was making quick decisions, who was pulling defenders out of position. I think Jordan Morris beat his man once in a game in which the right back is the best attacking piece for Pumas, but is not a strong defender, and that's how you get after them. Then he goes out with an injury, and you're playing against a 19-year-old with very little pro experience. Morris never really showed up, never had chances. Rui Diaz misses a chance that he scores 9 out of 10 times. João Paulo whiffs on his chance. It didn't feel like João Paulo and Rusnak were clean on the ball, clean in their passing, their distribution. They didn't get the roll-downs into great areas throughout the game. So I don't know that a lot of that stands up. It's really the rain and the atmosphere that is the number one thing that you're thinking about with that game. And then Christian Roldan just grinding you to another moment to be able to tie it up and go home. And with no away goals, you put yourself in a spot where win at home and you win. That's it.
I would say
it's simple.
I would say Rusnak was pretty clean. He just wasn't really effective. It was one of those games where you didn't really see too much of him because he didn't make any mistakes. It was kind of always making the safe play. So I think from that perspective, you're right that he didn't really do too much, but I do think he was pretty clean and not making mistakes. If you look at João Paulo and him, they controlled the midfield, but they were typically like in their own half or in the middle third. So,
but Pumas is not a team that really creates out of that space. Mm-hmm. So I agree with you. But not only was it the expectation, it wasn't an advantage to Seattle for them to have that area. And I felt with them being so deep, and I think you could hear me on the watch along show, there was angles to pass through the middle to link up as Lodero dropped in and Roldan dropped in. And as you said, they went safe. They went back a ton. They went out wide a ton to areas that were deep, so it wasn't really dangerous. And then often you'll see Lodero or Rusnak be an option there for a triangle, right? To create an opportunity. It didn't feel like they were quick to that. It felt like the field ran odd on them. And one of the things that I thought about this morning is I think Pumas really struggled in New England. Obviously, losing 3-0 could have been worse. The snow was a factor. The weather was a factor. But they seemed uncomfortable on the turf. So I do wonder at Lumen Field, how much of an advantage the surface will be for the Sounders being comfortable with it.
We will dig into that a little bit. Charlie, what was Dave right here? I just need to know if he...
Yeah, what's your moment?
If he met your...
Well, I mean, I thought you were just talking about moment of the game.
You could go that, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think he's saying that, the Roldan moment, but it had a larger context to it, you know?
Well, I would say Lodero as a whole of just what he's meant to the Seattle Sounders. In these moments... If you look at just Lodero as a figure with the Seattle Sounders from the moment he signed up until now, you think about the biggest moments that he's had where they've won MLS Cup, where he's had MVP type performances. This is the one that no MLS team has ever done. You're talking about on the road at Pumas, 2 penalties with a keeper who's experienced as any as they come, and he steps up and buries it twice. Like that's what stands out to me is just Lodero and his accomplishments for Seattle and what he's been able to do for the club. And this is the ideal type of player. If you're ever talking about scouting and the right signings, this is the ideal impact you want from your DP. that is Lodero on and off the field. Just a good person.
It's also interesting too because there's no guarantee that he was going to be in this position.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think there was a pretty safe assumption by a lot of people he was never going to play for the Sounders again.
That he
maybe was never going to play soccer again. But then maybe if he was, it wasn't for the Sounders. And so for him, as Charlie said, to come all the way full circle, the first one gets touched and he still stands up. For the second one, when Montero's now on the field and Montero scored all the ones already this year and Lodero still steps up and bangs it in, I agree with Charlie. I think this was a shining moment for him, and he is probably the greatest acquisition in MLS history.
Oh, just curious. Who picked him to be MLS MVP for this year? I'm just curious. Is there any?
I got a selective case of amnesia.
Yeah, I don't really follow that.
I literally couldn't remember if you replayed me a clip, I would deny its existence. I would say that's probably doctored.
Okay.
They could do a lot of things right these days with artificial intelligence and all that other stuff. Probably fake.
Deep fakes.
Yeah, I don't have no idea who would have said that, and if they did, they're lying. Those are right answers. The thing that I think that's sticking with me right now, and maybe it'll be different long term, but short term, is just. I've felt such a deja vu of emotions with this tournament so many times, and I can literally feel and see and imagine all these moments, whether it be in a different life in Brooklyn at 101 Quincy, sitting on my couch by myself at midnight on the East Coast, just praying an MLS team not to collapse, to get the result in Mexico, to not have the moment that comes up and bites them in stoppage time that eliminates them. And how many times have I done that? How many times have I felt that? And I just felt like I was back in that moment through those first two goals, whether it be Dinenno, the whole sort of, it's just absolutely class that Dinenno was supposed to be out and then he plays and he scores 2 goals. That felt like the most fitting possible thing in the world to be back in that headspace of just are you freaking kidding me? How, why? And thinking how and why, and also thinking, I know how and why, this is the way it just is. Is it ever not going to be this way? And then for it to be turned around in the 77th and then a 90+9 or whatever it is, and have MLS get a little bit of luck and a little bit of benefit, and have the referee, instead of it being me yelling at the screen, being like, "Ref, are you kidding me? How is this possible?" To be able to flip that around. I mean, those emotional ups and downs. It felt like every CCL game I've ever watched, except for this time at the end of it, I was smiling. And usually at the end of it, I was cursing and going to bed mad. And right now, that's the emotional side I'll remember. The absurdity of the first PK, and I'm with you, Charlie. I've come full circle on this. I know Dave and you and I in the moment of the watch along are screaming at Doyle, being like, you Benedict Arnold, how dare you say that this is a PK? Never in a million years. And that's the space that this tournament puts us as MLS fans, as people who want to see it get over the line. But to then have Fry save it, and then have it go back to video review, which has just been implemented in CONCACAF and CCL, and have it be taken back, rightfully so, Fries off the line, and then have it go in. I mean, just that emotional roller coaster. I still feel like tremors in my life from that moment alone, and I can't imagine what the final is going to be like. There are no yellow card suspensions for the second leg, by the way. Away goals don't count for whatever reason in the final. It counted all the way up to the final, but doesn't count in the final. Something to do with extra time, I'm sure. But no yellow card suspensions. Steph Fryer was on one, Dinenno was on one, etc. So we won't have to worry about that in the final. But what are the big storylines headed that way as we wait for Wednesday, as we build up to Wednesday? Sounders not playing this weekend. Pumas are playing this weekend, and their Liguilla life is on the line. They host Pachuca. What do we think about now? What are you marinating on now, Dave?
So we have a question in the rundown from James Burrell, who says, what would it mean for Seattle to win CCL, and how do they not repeat the mistakes of the past? And so 2 questions there. But the second one to me is go out to win the game. I think when you look at Montreal, when you look at TFC leg 1 at home against Chivas, and when you look at RSL, I think you look at teams that were trying to manage results, forget all that, especially without away goals. So for me, what I'm looking for is the intensity, the fight, and the spirit from Seattle at the start. And it's not always been there in finals for them. 2016, they don't get a shot on goal. Fine. Tough weather, injuries. 2017, they get played off the field immediately. 2019, that's been the best final we've seen them play. And obviously it was at home, which bodes well for what we're going to see next week. And then 2020, they get blown off the field. And I thought this was a slow start from them again. So my hope is the slow start is all of game 1, and that game 2, they are ready to play, because you've got your crowd, you've got your atmosphere, you've got your home environment. Make Pumas believe that they have no chance in this game. And that has been the story for MLS teams, is we've overthought it. The stat coming out yesterday now, an MLS team has never lost in Mexico in a CCL final, and yet an MLS team has never won the CCL final. It's too much of how can we do it? What do we manage? What are our pieces? Go out and score goals and just put them to the sword.
You're saying we've overthought it, as opposed to just, and maybe that's part of this competition, is that like that little brother mindset of like, oh, how do we get over the hump of Liga MX? And when you say get over the hump, you're saying Liga MX is above us, that they are superior. And that's been the case in this tournament. We know that. But how can the Sounders channel the side of it of just like, we're the better team, let's do what the better team does. Now, I do remember that Montreal final, and it goes back to what you're saying about managing the game. Montreal actually came out and led. Like, Montreal was in a position to win. The difference was that America team felt inevitable. This Pumas team doesn't feel nearly so inevitable.
Also, that Montreal team could not dominate possession. That wasn't who they were. And so they were always going to cede the ball to America. And they did. And it was just about hanging on, which they did down in Mexico. They couldn't once they came home. That should be different about Seattle. Maybe it's not their best attribute, but Charlie mentioned it. I mean, Rusnak Xiaopalo and Nico Lodero, Christian Roldan on the wing, Alex Roldan, who's starting in World Cup qualifying in CONCACAF at center mid, playing right back. You should dominate the ball. You should dominate the pace of this game. You should dominate the intensity. And I spent 10 days calling GA Cup games, international versus MLS, with Bobby Warshaw, and he kept bringing up Jesse Marsh's speech that he gave at Liverpool, which was make the other team feel you. Like, set the tone in a game. That's been an issue for MLS teams, and that's what I want to see for Seattle from the first kick in this game. And if you lose 4-3, then so be it. And that's what happens, and that's what the day is. But this team should at least come out to play this game to win.
Charlie, I argued last night that the most positive thing about this, outside the result, which is obviously a huge positive, is that I just don't think we saw anywhere close to the Sounders, not even at their very, very best, but even like at their good. Mm-hmm. Like, I just think there's this huge sort of percentage jump in performance, both, and you said it, I think very accurately, Dave, individually, but also collectively, that they should be able to channel and take advantage of in this match. Like, we saw really a poor Seattle performance get a draw in Mexico. Yes, there's some fortunate aspects of that, but they did win the XG battle. They didn't let Pumas create almost anything. Yes, torrential rainpour might have something to do with that in Dinenno's health, but this is not a Pumas team that's going to that's going to run you off the field. Sorry, the Revs might argue about that, but this is not a Pumas team that should run Seattle off the field. How much better can Seattle play, and how do they do it?
They can play much better. We haven't seen this team play to the best of their ability yet, because typically they've been dealing with injuries. And then injuries, if you're missing one player, if you miss Lodero, if you miss Rui Diaz, forget it. Those are your two central players. Then Christian Roldan and Jordan Morris. I think for this team to be at their best, Jordan Morris is constantly getting down the left flank. When he gets the ball, it's aggressive. There's no hesitation from him. And getting to full speed and putting the right back on his heels, which then also puts the right center back in a dangerous position, because he knows he's always got to cover. So now when you take those two players out of the equation, that frees up space for Rui Diaz now to make that run into that space where that right center back is going to be vacated. So now the left center back has to kind of move over, and then that defensive midfielder is thinking about that and trying to help. And now you're creating so much space in these gaps for Lodero to come into. And now João Paulo, that's the game changer for Seattle, because now you have a midfielder who can drop deep, sit in front of the back four, and play those balls in between the lines, who has the capability to do that. They never really had that before. He can also drive forward. He's comfortable in possession. There's not too many defensive midfielders who can play long-range passes, whether it's in the air or on the ground, who can dribble and accelerate out of the midfield, and also is fine with just being on the ball and playing to him in tight spaces. There's not too many who can do that. So that's the added bonus for Seattle Sounders. Then you throw in their outside backs. I think Nuhu is a player who is still continuing to get better. I think his ceiling is so high because he's so athletic and just making the right decisions at the right time. I think his decision-making has gotten better. I think his ability on the ball has gotten better. His touches have gotten better. So there are just so many different dynamics to this Sounders team, and you have to be flexible. Sometimes you press really high and you're aggressive. Sometimes you can sit and absorb pressure and counter through your wingers. I think it's just going to take time. I picked them to win MLS Cup this year because I think with everyone healthy, with Ladero who's still catching up, and he's on his way, that this team is going to hit peak form come late summer, early fall. So it's still, I think, a work in progress getting everybody up to speed. Jordan Morris is still trying to recover. I think Christian Roldan and Alex Roldan has developed into a phenomenal right back just from his CONCACAF experience. I think when he's depended on with El Salvador to be the captain, the leader, and has kind of embraced that role, man, he's really, I think, changed and transformed into a really top player in Major League Soccer, and he's only getting better. So, man, the more I talk about Seattle, I'm like, man, this team is deep.
You already guaranteed it out here. By the way, how's the lawn care going out there, Charlie? Is somebody vacuuming the house? You got some?
Yeah, it's yeah.
The grounds are being kept.
Yeah, I got to make sure over there. Yeah.
It's the mulching,
guys. These hedges are not going to trim themselves. All right, we need those hedges in tip-top order. I need 90-degree angles on there. Don't make me come out there with a protractor. All right, I will guarantee that this work is on point. We had a tweet come in from Jim Kim. What is a better chance of happening next Wednesday? Nuhu scores the game-winning goal, or Nuhu and Marchand make snow angels in the confetti? I hope we see both. I hope we see certainly Marshawn Lynch out there. And we kind of joked about the hype video, but that's one of the best pieces of MLS content I've ever seen in my MF life. Like it made me happy in every single way, and I'm happy they get to go home now with this advantage. Here's the one from Andy Priegler. We've kind of danced around this one at times in the past, or maybe even addressed it correctly, but I think you have more context here, more water under the bridge, and perhaps even another title coming. Brian Schmetzer, where is he on the American coach pantheon? We know what's at stake for the Sounders. I do think it's really poetic to have Garth Lagerwey be, basically the head of soccer guy who is now trying to accomplish this after he was really the first in the modern era, obviously, at RSL to almost accomplish it. And you've sort of seen it's been his white whale for a long time. He always talks about it. We'll chat with him more about that one on Monday. But for Brian Schmetzer, Dave, what perhaps is at stake here for him? Other than what's always at stake for Brian, which is like his utter devotion and dedication to this club and ability to give them a piece of history that they'll remember forever.
I think it is an opportunity to put him in a different conversation. And he's already, well esteemed, but I don't know that he's in the convo with Bob Bradley. I think now when we talk about American coaches, the things Jesse Marsch could accomplish are things that Brian Schmetzer will never be able to attain because he won't go over to Europe. I'd be surprised. What is Jim Curtin's future? What's Greg Vanney's future? So I think for Brian Schmetzer to be the first to win this is an unmissable opportunity if you're talking about legacy in regard to other people. And I think as someone who came in NASL, dealt with pro leagues coming and going and coming and going and indoor and outdoor and all these things, it would be pretty cool to accomplish this and sort of put the league on new footing going forward. So he's in a conversation because of the success the Sounders have had, but it is a conversation with Ziggy Schmidt and Bruce Arena and Bob Bradley and Dom Kinnear and Jesse Marsch and all these other managers, Greg Berhalter, who have had success as well. This would be different. And so, when you bring up Bob, I would say, well, he won in multiple markets, plus he coached over in Europe, coached Egypt. Like, that's different. This is Brian Schmetzer's version of, well, this puts him in a different conversation because no one else can touch being the first to do this, even as teams progress and start doing it, we hope, going into the future. And so I think you saw that from the speech he gave after the NYCFC game, and the way he's talked about it is trying to impose on the players how big a deal this is and how big of an opportunity this is that you don't want to let slip.
Yeah, I think that's well said. Of just like the differentiator. So like what makes Brian Schmetzer special? We know there are all these things. That's not to minimize who he is, what he's accomplished, his leadership style, the assistant coaches that he has either both hired or cultivated, whether it be Ezra now in Chicago, who seems to be his biggest cheerleader. And Ezra, I hope I am taking that shot of Malort with you. Ezra told us last night that he was drinking Malort. I don't think I believe him on that one as he watched the game. But like, I think the leadership style of Brian is really interesting. And to me, leadership comes back to who you surround yourself with and how much people trust you. And it's very clear he has those things. But you said other people have won MLS Cup. Other people have done what he's done, not in Seattle, though. And that's Brian's thing, is like he is Seattle to a T. He embodies it. He identifies with it. He is this club in a lot of ways, and he is soccer in the city. If he has the CCL, if he brings that to Seattle, it's something the city, the club, his players, himself, nobody can ever say that they've done the same thing. And I hope he gets it. I hope the Sounders get it as well. Do we think any tactical changes might be coming from Brian Schmetzer? That doesn't seem very Schmetz-like in the sense that he's like, hey, I'm going to roll my best ones out there and we'll see if you can match it. We had somebody hit us up, Derek Young, saying, Schmetzer switched to 3 center backs late in the game. Do you think we'll see that in the second leg? I don't. Unless they are like maybe in a late game situation, but I certainly don't think that would be the case from the start.
Yeah. I talked with Steve Zakuani about this 2 days ago coming into the game. Like, I think it's an option. I think it's interesting with Pumas' shape, but Brian Schmetzer will want his best players out there. And both Jordan Morris and Christian Roldan and Nico Lodero don't fit into a 5-3-2 or a 5-4-1, whatever it is. And so I would be surprised if he makes the change for that reason.
What do you expect, Charlie, on Wednesday? How do the Sounders get it done? Because you're already guaranteeing how the Sounders get it done.
Well, they have to play to win the game. You cannot play to be cautious and defend. You're at home. You play the way you always play, and you roll out the same players. The best benefit that they have is there's no game in between. So, and I think for me, that says MLS says we want to win this competition. We are not allowing Seattle to play. We're not allowing the possibility of someone getting injured in a game or fatigue. We want them fully rested, and they're going to go in with their best 11, and you try and win the game. That's all you have to do. You can win 1-0, you can win 2-0, you can win 2-1. It doesn't matter. You go to win the game, and you have to play that way. Now, we always talk about in-game adjustments. This is where Schmetzer has to be tactically smart when they do have a 1-0 lead and there's 20 minutes to play, 15 minutes to play, or they have that lead, is to say, okay, guys, now we have to be a little bit smart and maybe make some substitutions to bring in the defenders.
You saw him throughout the game, like having that exact communication, whether verbally or non-verbally. Like he just kept the two-handed whistle, the two finger in both sides of the mouth. That's like of that generation for sure. I feel like once you become I'm not going to say Brian's an older man, but once you hit like 45, 50, I think it's like a natural thing. You just learn how to do that. All of a sudden you raise your fingers to your mouth and you can whistle in that way and pointing to his head. That's they did it. And that has been very difficult for MLS teams to do in Mexico and in this competition in the past, is to keep their head in situations where things are going against them and they're down. And that's the benefit of getting here when you're the Sounders and you've played in myriad knockout round games in a lot of different competitions over the past 5-6 years, and you've kept your core together. Like I had somebody text me today that they think whenever MLS gets over the hump that we'll just start collecting them, and this is not some random person. It's somebody who's played in a number of CCL games, who's played internationally, and I was like, man, I really hope that's the case. But I also wonder whether the Sounders and how they're constructed and how this tournament has been constructed, or at least qualified, where you don't have the big giants in Mexico, I wonder if that will be the case. But somebody's got to get over the hump. Maybe it'll be the Sounders. TBD. All right. Any last impressions, last thoughts, last anything from Sounders and CCL? I mean, we'll be there on Monday, so we'll be right back to the well for that show.
I would say, as a whole, Major League Soccer community, because we are a community, that we just get behind Seattle. I know for the Vancouver fans in here and the Portland Timbers fans in here, it may be difficult, but we want to see success with Major League Soccer winning CONCACAF Champions League, because it's another step in the evolution of this league as it continues to grow. So I think why I'm so hyped about this, I know you're scarred, Weeby. I know you're scarred, Goss. But this is a great opportunity that I feel we're going to will it. And Seattle Sounders have done a terrific job of building this club, building this roster, and they're ready. You go down in the finals to Pumas and get a 2-2 draw, being down 2-0. You talk about resilience and character. They have it all. Barring a major collapse and I'm talking red cards and injuries, I just don't see them not hoisting that trophy. But this is why we play the game. But I'm excited, and I think we should all get our support up and hope and rally them on. Let's go.
And be prepared. Be prepared for whatever comes, because look, it may not be straightforward. It probably won't be. We know the way this competition goes. MLS teams are not going to take the lid off. I don't think. I hope I'm wrong and just have Seattle waltz out there and hit them 3-0. I hope I am dead wrong. I hope it's a 90-minute celebration. I hope we have no anxiety, no existential thoughts, no nothing that like drags us back into the dark zone that we've been in so many times. And I think Seattle can do that. And once the lid comes off, I think there will be a mental block lifted on MLS teams. But we can't keep talking about that. How many times we talked about it, it hasn't happened. So let's get it done, Seattle. We'll see you on Sunday night. We will see all of you listening who want to come have a drink with us, on us, one on us. Maybe we'll have to like put a stamp on your hand or something on Tuesday, and we'll figure out that spot and let you know where it's going to be at. We'll announce that on Monday's show for sure at the very, very latest, and try to get it on Twitter as well. 9:30 p.m. Eastern next Wednesday, the CONCACAF Champions League final second leg, all even, 2-2. Throw that aggregate score out. It's basically 0-0. Whoever wins goes on. There will be extra time as well as penalties if we need it. I hope we do not need it. But let's get into some MLS Week 9, some news and notes. The big news and note I'm going to throw out there, we have a spicy Caleb Porter quote coming up here just in a little bit. The rundown gods blessed us with a quote that we got to read, but we'll start with a new DP in the league. You've probably been hearing the rumbling. We talked to Michael McCall on the Power Ranking show about it. On Tuesday, Doyle and I did. Andrés Cubas, new DP for the Whitecaps, 4-year deal for him. They went 4 years apparently to get him on basically a flexible deal that could be TAM, high-end, or DP. Paraguayan defensive midfielder, has been in Ligue 2 for a little bit now, but has a huge talent, 25 years old. He's a ball winner, product of Boca Juniors, et cetera, et cetera. Seems like the perfect signing for the Whitecaps, but they have some work to do. They're in the Spoon standings right now, and they're number 1 in those standings, and that's not where you want to be. Maybe some of that Vanni Sartini magic has worn off. Also, health has worn off. They were fortunate down the stretch last year, haven't been so fortunate this time around, so we'll see if Andrés Cubas can make a difference. Let's jump into Week 9. Saturday, the first game on national TV, Houston-Austin. Unimas, Turien, Twitter. Copa Tejas continues. We got one last week, got some drama as DC beat Houston, and we're back. We have a tweet here from Samwise the Fool. It's still too early, never too early for this, Samwise, but is Driussi an MVP contender? He asked this in the same week that we put out our MLS Soccer.com MVP power rankings, on which Driussi was the number 1 player. He's tied atop the Golden Boot standings. It was Driussi, Georgie, Carlos Vela, Leo Campana, and Tati in the top 5. In your mind, Dave, is Driussi rightfully number 1, and does he have a long-term MVP contender potential? Like, can he hold the spot?
So just to be clear, Vancouver signed a DP, but now we're talking Driussi. Right?
Oh, you can go back to Vancouver.
No, it's fine. If you want to hear more about it, you can go to MLS Today, any day, 11 a.m. Eastern time, or listen to podcasts. I've been talking about it all week. I think it's a great move.
I thought we talked about it for like 2 weeks of like, seed and seed.
Fair.
So
that's a great idea.
Yeah, I think it's a great move for them. Does Driussi have a path to being MVP?
Well, long term. Right now, I don't think there's any question about it.
Yeah, and why is there a question about it long term?
Well, Austin's about to hit like an 8 games on the road in 11. They're about to have a more difficult schedule coming up. They have another DP that's not on the field with him right now. Sustainability is a real thing. There's
so the question you're asking is, will Austin be good enough for Driussi?
That's probably the question.
Because the question is,
will be good enough.
Yeah, exactly. He's a 26-year-old number 10 out of Argentina who's a DP who's scoring and creating goals. So that's his pathway, and he's there. And I do think this is a year where there is not going to be a 75-point winning team. I don't think we're looking at another record for the points for a Supporters Shield winner. And so I think you're going to look at the top 5 or 6 teams and say, okay, who's the leaders? Who's the guys who are doing it in more than one way? Who are the pieces that are those MVP players? I think from quality and style, Girici will always stand out. And with the atmosphere that Austin has, they're going to be national TV a ton. We already know that. We've already seen it. He is going to be in the conscience over the course of the rest of the year. So I believe Girici will be a finalist when we get to the end. Will Austin be good enough for him to win it? I don't know, but it feels like they're on the path to being a playoff team. And yeah, talk about the schedule and all that, but you got to win games. Like, you can't keep questioning them as they put up points. And even if you think they're easy games or not, Seattle's sitting in 11th place. Other teams are struggling. The Revs are nowhere to be seen. Like, at some point, you just have to perform and win games. And his team's doing that. So, yeah, I think Girici is a legitimate contender for this award. And I think, okay, they don't have the other DP on the field, but if they're able to figure out a way to win, I think Dominguez was a neutral, if not negative, at times on the field. They might be better without him, and they might be better if they can move on and sort of use that piece, although you probably would have liked to have brought Giassi Zardes in if that ends up being the case.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. So it's at Houston this weekend, home against LA, at RSL, at LAFC, Orlando at home, at LA, at Montreal, Dallas, at Charlotte, at Colorado, at Atlanta, and then back Houston, at Dallas. Mm-hmm. It's not easy. And look, Austin fans have given me a lot of shtick, and I've had fun with you doing it, and we won't play the bonus game anymore. But this is sort of the like, okay, well, you've proven you can win at home. I readily acknowledge that. You've got results at home, and you've been eminently impressive doing it. I'm very curious now to see how this road trip goes, and I believe this is a playoff team. They got the talent, both on the top end, and I think at least in the starting lineup, to keep it rolling. Do they have the depth? That might be tested as this summer sort of stretches and begins. But Girici has a chance. Which teams, Charlie, have the potential to have an MVP candidate? Because I think Dave's onto something there, which is that there isn't, maybe outside of LAFC, I don't really see a team being able to say, like, we're going to challenge that point record. Because they got the open DP spot. They could reinforce even more from a team that's already in the Shield, that's on pace for 2+ points a game. So, like, LAFC could have an MVP, and regardless of the players on the team. I think Austin could. Driussi makes the case, but nobody else is going to have that opportunity. I don't think Philly have an MVP candidate.
I think if they win Supporters Shield, depending on how it's done, though? I think it would be Andre Blake or Daniel Gazdag, based off the way the season's...
Definitely not Gazdag. Definitely not.
Charlie, stop! Because you would have said the same thing about Hani Mukhtar 2 years ago.
It's Hani Mukhtar. Hani Mukhtar. Gazdag is not Hani Mukhtar.
What do you mean? He's Hungarian international at 22 years old.
He could be a Brazilian international at 22 years old. Doesn't matter. I'm talking about performances. For me, Gazdag is not the top player on that team.
He's 26, by the way. So he's not quite 22, but...
Yeah, I was thinking of Sean, I think.
He's throwing out numbers.
Anders knows. That's my deal.
Philly could do it. They don't have a star.
I will guarantee you right now that no Philadelphia Union player will win MVP this year.
Oh, I'll take that. I don't even know if you can take a guarantee.
I'll straight guarantee.
Okay.
That. Like,
I wouldn't do that, but if you want to,
I just did it.
Okay.
I just absolutely did it, and that's not to say that if they win the Shield, that one of those guys, Andre Blake in particular, I would think would deserve it. Maybe Michael Uro would just like blast off if he goes and wins the boot. I'll look like a moron.
Yep.
But right now, I'm holding tight on my Baron.
The big one to me in terms of can Driussi win or whatever, what it'll look like is, I think, and you can't say it today because of the standings, but I think it'll be pretty evident quickly that Tati will be the front runner, and I don't know that he'll be in this league. And so that opens the door to everyone else, which is if he plays as well as he can and he leaves, no one else on NYCFC is probably going to win it because Tati will be the face of it, but he won't be eligible because he's no longer here. And now you're starting to look around and say there's an opening for other guys to get into that convo. Does Vela play week in and week out? Is that enough? So I think there's a window there for a guy like Driussi, even if they're just top 4 in the West, to win it.
Who's the MVP? And we'll go more MVP talk in a second. But who's the MVP of the Houston Dynamo as we watch Driussi go to Houston?
Well, just before I even get into that, I would just say you look at Seattle, and they could have 3 3 MVPs. So that you look at Ladero, Rui Diaz, and João Paulo. It's like they take votes away from each other. I think when you're talking about LAFC, you're talking about Austin. It's all going to Driosi, and it's all going to Carlos Vela, right? So I think that, and in terms of Philadelphia Union, it probably all go to Andre Blake unless Mikael Ulrich just lit it up, and he has the capability because he has that pace. No chance. But when I look at Houston, it's difficult because you got to think about who can change the game. I love Carrasquilla. I think he's been a great signing for this team. I think it's still Quintero. I think Quintero, when he is in form and he's fit and you play him higher up the field and he doesn't have to, you don't rely on his defending, he could be I think he is the MVP of that team.
By extension, then wouldn't Paulo Nagamura? I know it's like that's cheating.
We're talking about players.
I get it, but like previous coaches couldn't find a way to make that work. And Paulo has so far. Now, has that worked consistently long term? Darwin Quintero in the lineup. We have to see the end of the year if we're talking about long term, because Adrian Heath had Quintero for moments playing at that level, MVP, but it wasn't long term. That's what I'm saying. Short term,
yeah. So far, you could say Adrian Heath did the same thing with Minnesota. If he can get Quintero to play at that level consistently throughout the whole year and stay engaged, have that ambition to win, to be the best player, because he can create those moments of magic, that's your MVP right there.
I think if Darwin Quintero is the MVP for Houston at the end of the year, it's a disappointing season for them. I don't think in 2022 he is a player that gets you to the playoffs. I will say that Quintero has brought the magic for them. The only reason it's been enough to get them wins and ties is because the defense has been better. Tim Parker has missed half the year. Teenage Hadebi's missed half the year. Daniel Steres has missed a large chunk of the year as well. So to me, Steve Clark's the biggest acquisition they've made so far, because he has improved the shape, he has improved the trust and the comfort level along that back line. And in terms of play for outfield players, I think Matias Vera has been as important as anyone. I would say, now that World Cup qualifying's over and all that Coco Carrasquilla will probably be that guy. He just hasn't played as many games so far. But Vera's job is to build the platform that Quintero can create off of. Because if you just roll him out there, there's a reason coaches haven't started him, because you will give up a ton of goals. He will not work off the ball. If you have Vera and Carrasquilla doing the work behind him, then it makes it possible to keep him on the field.
Carrasquilla also in that Tati Castellanos will he, won't he be here sort of mold. His loan is up in the summer. We've talked to Pat Onstad about that before. All indications are that it's a pretty complicated cap situation for the Dynamo. We'll see if they can make that permanent or extend it, or what happens with Coco Carrasquilla.
If that doesn't happen, every MLS team should be lining up for that guy.
By the way, we didn't talk about this. I think Dinenno's out of contract. We just watched him Pumas. I think he's out of contract at the end of this year. Every team should be lining up for that as well. Like, there are teams that could absolutely use Juan Dinenno. Here's a question.
Who, Weeby? Name them.
Well, it depends on if they have the cap space. I mean, think about Juan Dinenno on Sporting Kansas City.
Oh,
I know you got Polito taking up that space, but that's the complicating factor for these squads, right? Is like that probably costs you at the minimum a high-end TAM signing. Like, who has planned well enough to have the cap flexibility to go in at this time of the year and do that? I don't know what's going to happen with. I don't think he's an Atlanta United style signing, but given the amount of money they've put into the wings, if Atlanta could make that signing, which they can't because the DP slots, that would be super.
I don't know that he'll be a DP because there's no transfer fee. So I don't know. I don't know that he has to be. And Pumas doesn't pay that high a level. So I think there's a chance he could come to this league on TAM, especially at this stage of his career. If you're giving him 3 or 4 year deal,
double TAM in New England. If you sell Buxa this summer, if he's on TAM, Josie's up in that level as well. Columbus, by the way, and we'll get to that in a second. They say they need a 15 to 20 goal
Columbus
scorer.
Seems like the most likely one, and they've already gotten Zelarayan from Liga MX.
Yeah, he could be that guy. So, yeah, I mean, I think, look, Vancouver, Michael McCall's saying Brian White's not the forever, and they don't think Cavallini is either. Maybe that's a cost-effective way for Vancouver. I mean,
they bring in another true center forward on that team. I'm done.
There's a number of teams that could use.
Didn't Wasn't Goss the one who said Brian White should be on the national team?
No, I said Joe Willis.
Oh, I thought you said Brian.
No, the email said Brian White, and you lost your mind.
Yeah. Can I ask this question as we're on the MVP conversation here, and we've the other game to watch on Saturday as well as RSL LA at 3:30 p.m. Eastern. Both these are Univision Turia and Twitter games, so it's back to back for you. You can watch them for free on Twitter in English as well. That's a pretty sweet deal for you on a Saturday afternoon. Who outside of the Driussi, Georgi, Vela, Campana, Tati fivesome that we put on the MLS MVP power rankings, if you could choose one player that's outside that five right now to bet on the rest of the way, who would it be?
Can you say those names slower for me?
Yeah, sorry. Driussi, Georgi Mihailovic, okay. Carlos Vela. I'll say full name to give you an idea. Leo Campana, Valentin Tati Castellanos.
Okay, cool.
Who would be in that? Who would be in the group that you would say, okay, I can't take any of those five. Mm-hmm. Chicharito, I'm gonna take him off the board because it's too.
Why? I'm pretty sure Chicharito's the name.
Yeah, it's probably. It is probably Chicharito.
I have Jesus Ferreira would be up there for me.
Oh, that's low key a good one.
I think Reynoso's a big one.
You're pushing for a World Cup spot, and not only a World Cup spot to be the starter. So you have to you have to have a phenomenal season. So with Paul Arriola on a wing, and if Paxton Pomykal can have a good season, and Brendan Cervenia has had a couple of good performances, they're all looking to feed him. And he's going to be central to that team's success. So I could see Jesus Ferreira making a good case.
I'm going to go a little outside the box on these because I think that's sort of what it requires. Besides Reynoso, Chicha, and I think Jesus Ferreira for attacking players, I'm going to say Frankie Amaya. If New York continues here, it should probably be Aaron Long. I don't know that a defender will win it, but obviously Amaya's numbers won't jump either. But that's just sort of how people think and people operate. And then Hani Mukhtar. They're going home.
That's the obvious one to me is Hani. Yeah, that Hani would be the blindingly obvious one to me. Let's talk about that. Sunday, Nashville, Philly, ESPN Deportes, 4 p.m. Eastern. Geodis Stadium, all caps, Geodis Stadium opening up. It is big. When you see the videos, when you see the imagery, when you sort of try to, I don't know, when you try to conceptualize what this is going to feel like, and Geodis Park, my bad.
It's taking me all week. I had to write it down eventually because I kept saying it wrong.
Well done. See, sometimes you need corrections. I'm not flying.
No,
just throwing stadium, throwing arena on the back on things. Geodis Park. Did get the Geodis in the all caps right though, so maybe that's the important part. I think it's 30,000, right? It just looks expansive. It looks like at a scale that I really like, which is not to say that so many of the awesome stadiums that we have in this league that are more in the 19 to 22, 23, 24 zone aren't amazing places to watch a game and don't have crazy atmospheres. They absolutely do. It's one of the things that's really stood out this year as, this world gets a little bit more back to normal than it has been in the past, but it just feels like this place is going to rock. And I guess that's a good Nashville reference that I unintentionally made. Have you we've opened up stadiums, Dave, right? What have people been telling you on MLS
So
today?
Talk to Drake Hills today. Go listen to it. Podcast apps, search MLS Day if you don't already listen. And I think what excited me was he talked about the distance is 150 feet, I think, from the sideline to the furthest away seat. And he mentioned Lower.com Field in Columbus, which when you walk into Columbus now, the first feeling you have is that everything is vertical. It feels like everything's on top of the field, where if you go to the Galaxy game, which is obviously an older, longer back stadium, the seats sort of go back and up. And so no matter how many people are in the building and no matter how many seats are part of the stadium, which this one obviously is a lot, a stadium like that holds noise and it feels energetic on the field. And I think you see that from Columbus's games already, even through COVID when they weren't at full capacity and all of that. And so that's really exciting for me with Nashville, of that it's going to be the right atmosphere game in and game out, no matter what the crowds are midweek, whatever it is. Sometimes it's not as full as you want it to be. And the other is the concourses are all Nashville-based food, which that's how you got to do it. I'm hearing hot chicken. I'm hearing empanadas, hearing all the good stuff that you want. And boom, you got good food. You got good soccer. You've got a good atmosphere. You got a perfect day.
what matters to players the most in a new stadium, Charlie? Like, what would you, if you're in the squad, what would you be most excited about?
First is the pitch, a perfect grass pitch, and the length is proper. That's the first thing that you notice as a player. Then the second would be, like Dave said, how is the stadium? Is it enclosed? Does it keep the noise on top of you in the game? Do you feel it from the fans? That's really important. I remember, whether I was playing home or away, if there were fans, the home supporters behind the goal, and you could feel that usually made the game that much better, because you just felt like this is the type of environment and atmosphere you've always wanted to play in, that this is a professional game. And you get that from a lot of stadiums in Major League Soccer. So I think the support coming out and just filling up the stadium, I think Nashville, they get it. Their fans get it. The club was built the right way. And I think when you look at just how that's going to be an environment where they feed off of, it's going to be very difficult to play Nashville in that stadium. So I would say that. And then the third one, that's always the luxury that you're like, okay, is this stadium legit or not?
Yeah, that's what I've been hearing.
You go in the locker room, you're like, hey, how much space does each locker give you? Do you have seats? Do you have nice amenities? Is there a hot tub, and a cold bath? And typically that's when you're like, oh man. And if you have a nice visitor locker room, you're thinking, if there's ever an opportunity for a free agency, you can give me a call.
Hey, just come down. Come down and see. Just poke. It
worked on Sean. It worked on Sean Davis, so it's already in. And to Charlie's point, I've heard that already from these players. And one of the things you hear is it'll feel like home for them, right? Game in and game out, they'll have the same spot, where at Nissan Stadium, you're a tenant. It's a football stadium. It's not really built for you. This, I think the players will feel like it's theirs, which then gives you that connection to sort of protecting it and having that home atmosphere.
I think that goes for the fans, obviously, as well. I just think, to me, and I'm speaking from experience in the sense of Kansas City, of being here and witnessing, the way the club was, and there's a lot of factors here, different ownership, et cetera, different era in Major League Soccer, but witnessing what it was like at the independent league baseball park that they played in to start, which, the pitch was great, had won awards for its pitch over many, many years, but was, a little bit tight, and, the locker room was small, and, Peter Vermees was doing interviews next to a urinal, and the amenities weren't there, and it felt transient from the jump. And as a fan, that. When you walk into a place that's not yours, that, what permanence do you have? What traditions hold? What memories, what nostalgia do you have? What like associations do you remember? And now you walk into Sporting Park here in Kansas City, and they've got the wall painted, and they have all these memories, and they have the time that I was there with my dad and saw this game, or I was sitting there with my buddies when we won MLS Cup, or if you want to roll your eyes and groan, like, do you remember how cold 2013 was, etc. Like that. Those are the sort of things that Nashville supporters and the people of Nashville and the people that love the game are going to be able to start building, and they're going to be able to look at that stadium and see just a physical representation of the permanence and the power and the ambition of the club that they call their own. And those things, those things change the way that you think about the club, about your fandom, about attracting other people in to share it with you. And ultimately, that's really what I think is supporting a club is all about. Yeah, it's about what happens on the field and whatever, but it's about having this community that grows and that evolves and that shapes within you as you grow and evolve, and that place that you have for years and years and years. So if you're a Nashville fan, you have your spot. You have your spot where you sort of commune, where you have these moments, where you make memories, where you can submit your identity. Where I don't know if I'm sure it's not painting the wall for them. I don't know if they're going to do maybe they're going to do like gold albums, like 2000 whatever, gold album. We won MLS Cup, whatever.
Weeby did that voice to make it sound cool.
To build tradition.
Good job, Weeby. Nailed it.
Did I? I thought that was. I thought it was like the opposite of that. I was trying to make it sound less cool. Yeah. But it's gonna be awesome. I wish I was gonna be there. I'm jealous of the call up. They're literally there right now recording their show for this week. So if you want some more insight, definitely go check out the call up. It's
and I think we'll have Susanna Collins on MLS Today tomorrow to preview, and then obviously trying to pull her in on Monday as well to talk about it. But you mentioned like opening stadiums and what it feels like and all that. I just think it's really cool that in a week where we're talking about the Sounders making history on the field for MLS, you're also opening a 30,000 person soccer specific stadium in an area that I don't think many people pegged as a soccer market 5 years ago. Right. And this is what this next generation of MLS, which has been, there's no such thing as a soccer market. There's a sport that has a following in this country and has a lot of people that it connects to and a lot of people who are open to be converted. If you do things the right way, people will come. Atlanta proved it. I think Charlotte's already proving it. Obviously, LAFC has proven it. And I think this is that next step. And so to hear the Sounders selling out for a CCL final and being the first MLS team to win it, and that to be one of the stories of the week alongside a moment like this, just sort of shows you how the push is. And I think for all of us that like this league and care, it's exciting. And I think for people in Nashville, it's like a dream come true for them. And so this is your chance to enjoy it. And they've got 5 of their 6 at home. So they're hoping to do the Sporting KC, the TFC, the Atlanta United of like, let's just rattle off results now as we get into our home stadium.
What should Nashville expect, Charlie, from the rest of the season? They won at 8 points. They said that was their goal from 8 games. They got 11. They're just outside the playoff spots in the West. It's their first year in the West, obviously. But 3-3-2 on the road to start. That's really good. They have not been expansive, let's say, in their soccer. I think even Gary Smith would certainly admit that. So they're coming home. They're going to have, 17 of 26 games at Geodis Park. What would be like the baseline expectation for them as far as where they finish in the standings, given this? I mean, it's an advantage. It's a sizable advantage. Mm-hmm. And what would be the best case? The best case would be up top the West, right? Like, just given what we know about form at home. If you look at the best teams in the Western Conference, I mean, most of them are not.
LAFC 3-0-1, Austin 4-0-1,
4-0-1, Austin.
LA.
Yeah. Dallas, LA, Minnesota, Salt Lake. I mean, there's only 2 losses in the top 7 teams at home so far this year in the West.
Yeah, I would say that they finished top of the West, best case scenario, and worst case scenario, they're finishing 4th. I think those should be the expectations if you're Nashville. 4th place, but 1st place is the goal. With that, and you have to love the way they started the year. Going to Seattle, I know Seattle's in CONCACAF Champions League, but you're getting a win on the road to set the tone for the season. 1-0, winning it. And I think the results have been pretty good. Knowing that you're playing the first portion of your games on the road for this team, and they have a real defensive structure. You've never had an issue or a problem or a worry if you're a Nashville player or fan thinking that, man, we're gonna give up goals, we're gonna concede. It's always the goal scoring, because if Hani Mukhtar is not doing it or not getting service, not getting the balls to his feet, then who steps up? And I think that's still the issue for me. I can't see them winning MLS Cup with this current roster because they don't have a point man. They don't have a traditional goal scorer, someone who's just going to be in the box, who's just going to finish. CJ Sapong is as good as they come when you're talking about work ethic and covering ground and holding up the ball and getting under defenders' skin. That's who you got. You also have Teal Bunbury on the bench when he gets healthy. You have those type of players. Ake Loba has not hit.
I was saying, it's revealing that we don't really even go to Ake Loba. Really,
that's a miss. You can put that on the board now. That's a miss. It happens, but now you have to.
No, Charlie, no.
You got to figure out in the summer to bring someone in to play that position. So that's what's going to take Nashville over the top. If they can go out and get a Dinenno,
I'd personally be more focused on the wing.
Big time goalie.
Charlie, a year in, Adam Buksa was a miss, right?
It's not the same.
I will agree with Charlie in the sense that Adam Buksa had shown many more signs than Ake Loba of turning it around. Ake Loba
fine, but also the Revs were a worse team, and so he had more opportunity to play because they had nothing else to roll out there, right?
Oh, are you out of your mind? What do you mean they're a worse team?
They were when Buksa first arrived. They were like 7th in the playoffs in the standings that year and made the playoff run from a deep position. Whatever. There is proof that this has happened before, and then players have gone on to be great players in MLS. So I don't think you can just say Ake Loba's done. A 24-year-old DP, $10 million. I don't think you can just say that. Now, if Gary Smith has no interest in playing him, then I don't know what else you can do. But I don't think you can write him off and say, there's no way this guy's the guy that can help us.
I can tell you right now, it's a miss for $10 million. It is a miss. When you're bringing in someone with that price tag, you know whether they're in form or they're not in form, they have that special quality that they're going to be on the field because they can change the game. Ake Loba does not have that. So for me, that is a miss. And that's my opinion.
All right, let's. We're gonna watch this game. It's gonna be great. Philly in town, wonderful. They're top of the East. I was gonna ask you, Charlie, how they get the most from their forward pairing because it seems to be the overriding question mark with them, with Ura and Carranza. Mm-hmm. Give me your like elevator TED talk here.
I think when you saw with Sergio Santos and Kasper Šibilko, they both played as individuals. But they complemented each other in the sense that they were two different types of players. And I think with this pairing, it's the same thing, but I think there's more potential for them to play together. Mikael Ure is a player who's going to make runs in behind. He has pace. You've seen that. And when you talk about seeing a player that has something that can offer a team something different, whether they're in form or not, Mikael Ure has shown that already. In terms of Ake Loba, I don't think we've seen that. Really, we talk about those brilliant moments. I mean, there's none that come to mind. So, I think for Carranza, he's more of a standard player that makes good runs in the box. But I think we all know his ceiling. I think Mikael Ure, we will probably elevate his game, and I think his ceiling is much higher in the end. But there's a good reason if you're Philly to believe in these two working together, because I think they both understand. For them to have success, there has to be a partnership. And that's what really makes teams go. If you're playing two-striker system, your two strikers have to set the tone, not only offensively in making runs and behind, checking, and making sure that you're not doing the same thing, you're not making the same type of run, but defensively, the pressure with one checking on the center back, one checking on the defensive midfielder, and having that cohesion and understanding with each other and the movements. And I think a lot of that carries off the field too, hanging out, not so you don't have that selfish factor of I got to outshine the other. That typically means success when you're playing with two strikers. So if you're the Philadelphia Union, you have time because you have a great team. You understand with Jim Curtin what he's trying to do. I think you have Andre Blake, who obviously anchors the team well. There's a lot of potential with these two leading the line. So I think if you're the Union, you're quite content right now, but you have to continue to push them and get them the time to play together.
Nashville, Philly, Judas Park, 4 p.m. Eastern, ESPN Deportes on Sunday. Should be a blast. Always fun to see these stadiums opening, to get the pageantry, the sights and sounds, just to see the building, the players, the fans all experience it for the first time. It's going to be special. Check it out. Can't recommend that enough. And it does also seem like that'd be a great place to plan an away day. Nashville itself, pretty good city to go have a vacation to have some free time.
I Google mapped it. It's 1.5 miles from like downtown Broadway, downtown. So nice little bar crawl on the way down to the game. Sounds like a perfect weekend. I agree with you.
Yep. All right. LAFC Minnesota, the other one on Sunday on national TV, FS1, Fox Deportes. Check that one out. Two of the best players in the league going head-to-head. We talked about Vela in the MVP rankings. We don't have to tell you why it would be interesting to watch Carlos Vela and the top team in the Supporters Shield standings in LFC play a game. But Minnesota are rolling now too, and Emmanuel Reynoso is doing his thing. And when Reynoso's playing well, think back to that playoff run, think back to those moments of brilliance. You got to watch Minnesota as well. 1 goal, 3 assists in his last 2 MLS games. So should be a fun one to watch. Quickly, our ESPN Plus games of the weekend. I was going to say Chicago Red Bulls just for the Malort factor and also to see if the Red Bulls can keep winning on the road and whether or not the Fire could ever score a goal. But as far as entertainment value, I think I'm gonna go Orlando-Charlotte. I know it was a stinker from Orlando against the Red Bulls, but at home again, new boys in town, southern side. Mauricio Pereira said it was bad. It's got to be better. I want to see it be better, and Pato's been really entertaining to watch this year. So that would be my ESPN Plus game of the week. Dave, what about you?
I'm going Colorado Rapids, Portland Timbers, 9 p.m. Eastern time on Saturday night. Gyasi Zardes, hopefully his first start. He's finally gotten to train with the team. He only landed on Saturday last week and played those final 30 minutes. How do they start building it around him? We talked about on Monday's show. How does him and Diego Rubio fit? Does that sort of settle the midfield and put everyone back to the positions they should be in because they have the confidence that they can get goals with him? So that's huge to watch. And on the flip side for Portland, they're as desperate for goals as Colorado is. They've scored more than one goal once since that Revs opener, and it was against Vancouver. If they tie 0-0, I think they'd set their record with 3 straight 0-0 ties. So they're looking for chance creation, but I'm excited to see the Rapids with Zardes and what Robin Fraser can put together.
I'm going to read this quote from Caleb Porter, and we'll just live react. It's on Gyasi Zardes, obviously. Quote, I just started seeing him miss chances that maybe he would normally make. He's going to keep scoring goals. It's not like he's going to go there and it's not like he's not going to go there and score goals, but we need a 15 or 20 goal scorer minimum. We need that. We just feel like right now is the time. He's not on the up. I'd say he's not falling off the cliff like some players do, but slowly he's going to start going down because of his age. And again, we just need a little bit more.
Oh,
he's not, man, just
nah.
the
nope.
he's not
falling off a cliff though.
Right, but
I mean,
if he's not teetering, like he's got a bungee and they're lowering him down slowly.
This is one of the most disrespectful things I've heard from a coach sending off.
It's almost more disrespectful that it's not even more pointed. That it's just like, I guess though he's not on the up that's tough.
No, it's not even a guess. He's not on the up from Caleb Porter. He's going down. Like he's had his peak, and there's no. It's not sustainable, and he's going downhill. And we're gonna trade him. That's what he said. It's disrespectful. Yeah. Now, if I'm Gyasi Zardes, not that you needed to have motivation, and I've never come across someone who says, "Man, I don't like Gyasi Zardes." Everyone who's played with Gyasi Zardes says he is an incredible person. Why in the world would you kick somebody on their rear while they're leaving? They already had a no trade clause, which they disregarded to make this move happen. And you're going to kick him on the way out, and he's a club legend for the Columbus Crew, given what he's done for that team. And all of a sudden, you have to kind of end it in that way. I mean, Miguel Berry is not banging in goals for fun.
I said he's not a 15 or 20 either.
No. So how are you gonna do that to Gyasi Zardes? For me, Gyasi, you go to the Colorado Rapids, and you give the season to remember. And I think Robin Fraser is the type of coach that says, I'm going to give you all the support and confidence you need, and we're going to play through you. We're going to play. You're going to be the exclamation point whenever we are attacking. Right? And that's the type of support one striker needs to always feel appreciated and respected. I think he's going to get that in Colorado, and I really hope he just hits form, because he's also trying to play his way into a World Cup camp. He's trying to make a push, because no one has claimed the number 9 spot right now for the U.S. men's national team. Ricardo Pepi, yeah, he's done it. Jesus Ferreira, he's working.
Brian White's back on the field.
Oh, there you go. Gyasi Zardes, this is
Haji Wright is scoring goals in Turkey.
There's no one is.
Charlie goes, "Oh, you guys know names? Congratulations! So do my kids."
Yeah. Oh. Great. No one is still claimed the spot. So I think from that perspective, you're like, go on, Gyasi. But the other part is the coaching part from Caleb Porter. You've already had kind of a hot and cold reaction from players across the league because of what he says. And this is something where I thought, man, this is where you'd want to see a little bit more maturity from a coach. You don't come out and say, man, we got rid of him because he's not good anymore. Basically, is what you said. I would say look at yourself in the standings. You were an MLS Cup champion 2 years ago. You failed to make the playoffs last year, and now you're blaming your results because you're not scoring on Jossie's artist. That's the reason? No, it's not. You hadn't even started him the majority of times. You have started Miguel Berry, and he hasn't done it. And and this is the reaction that you have. So it's disappointing from Caleb Porter. It really is.
I was going to say, what's your ESPN Plus game of the week, Charlie? But I don't know if I have to. It's Revs Inter Miami. I'm going to Saturday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern.
Yeah, the Revs have been whack. So if there's ever a moment to turn things around and you look at the dynamic of this group, Matt Turner's been injured. And, yes, he's a keeper that wins you games. There's not too many keepers who win you games. Matt Turner wins you games, not because he can keep clean sheets, but because he's also fantastic with his distribution and starting counterattack or starting attacks from the back. So I think that's going to be a big help because they also got Petrovic to come in as the goalkeeper to kind of take over when Matt Turner officially leaves. But Matt Turner is training. He's getting his legs back. It looks like the team is moving forward. But attacking, the transition is where they've really stuttered. You lose Tajon Buchanan. I keep bringing that up because Tajon is got a one-track mind, and it's attack, attack, attack. You lose him, and they never replaced it with someone who was going to do the same thing. Run at players, 1v1, and take no names. I'm going. Here we go. Be on your heels. They didn't have that
Don't
anymore.
you take names? That's
take names. That's
Take no prisoners.
Take no
there
prisoners.
we go. That was as someone well versed in mixed metaphors, I was here for you on that one, Charlie.
Go. Thank you. And so this is a game, and Gustavo Bo's been injured too, and now you're seeing how they've lost that dynamic between Bo and Buxa. And Josie Altidore just hasn't been the Josie Altidore that everyone has, I think, been accustomed to seeing. He doesn't make runs in behind. When Josie's making runs in behind and stretching teams and being the highest man in the attack, the point person, that's when he's most dangerous. When Josie's checking all the way back, almost like a midfielder for most of the game to get touches, that's not the danger man you want. So for Bruce Arena to get the most out of Josie has to be the highest man up the pitch, and he's got to be making runs in behind. We haven't seen that. So I think the more fit he gets and the more, I think, direction he gets in terms of, hey, you got to be the highest man and make runs in behind. I don't want to see you check for the ball. Let Carlos Heel do all that. Let Sebastian Lletget do all that. You stay high. So that hasn't gone according to plan as of yet. And I'd say for Inter Miami, man, they are getting it done, but it's not with beautiful soccer. And when you think of Inter Miami and you think David Beckham, you think, man, South Florida, brand new stadium, they're going to be playing this possession-based football that is delicious and entertaining. That is not it. But they are phenomenal right now with their counterattack, and Leo Campagna is a man on a mission. He's playing his best soccer of his life right now. And it's because, one, he got the opportunity, but two, he knows he has to play that way to stay on the pitch. Because Gonzalo Higuain is sitting there like, hey, I'm healthy, and I've heard all these people talk trash about me and my attitude, and I have a point to prove, but I can't even get on the pitch because Leo Campagna is balling. He's absolutely balling. And it's because he knows he has to keep that level because the competition is so high in that position. So Inter Miami are playing defensive, they're playing direct, and it's working for them. So I'm really curious to see how this game goes.
All right, we have one piece of mail in the mailbag, Dave, that's been sitting
I don't think we have time for that.
a long time.
Anders is saying hard no. Well, but to Jason Kaminga, it's an amazing email. We will get to it eventually, I promise. It's out of...
You gotta drop the subject.
He's coming off GA Cup. He talked a little bit, sort of the way I'm seeing it as like, what's the version for an MLS team of what the Oklahoma City Thunder have done? And sort of his idea is, can teams in other markets maybe start to give good numbers in trades for youth players out of other academies? So I think that...
So like asset stacking,
and I think,
basically.
I think we've seen the Colorado Rapids do it a bit. I think it's a really cool concept. And so we'll dig into it more when we have time. But if anyone else has emails like that, I'd love to, besides schedule, or conference alignment. Besides that,
please go.
give me anything from left
don't
field that you have, because I'm here for it.
All right, this is let's see, next Thursday. That's the CCL one. Well, damn it, we'll get it in sometime. All right, that's it for us.
Gambe.
Thanks everybody for listening.
He's from South Korea, so Gambe. It's cheers in South Korea.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. Okay. All right, that's it for us. 401-206-0MLS. We will be in Seattle starting on Sunday. We will see, I assume, many of you on Tuesday. We'll let you know where that's going to happen. And CCL Final Wednesday post-game show will be our show for Thursday. Thanks for listening, everybody. We appreciate you. We love you. Adios. Congratulations, you made it through more than an hour of Extra Time. That means you love the show, and if you love the show, you probably want more episodes. Click right here for more episodes of Extra Time, and here to subscribe to the MLS YouTube channel. Thanks for following along.